Now that we know the steps to follow, certain tricks that we've got to pay attention to, let's continue practicing a bit more. Remember that several answers are given. In 9, it was size and shape and name. And 10, it was chest. So if you're a beginner, write down any answer that may be connected to the gap and stop the recording whenever you want. Go back if you need to do so. Play trying to find the correct answer. If you're a little bit more advanced, well, just concentrate on finding the correct answer, but you can repeat the recording as many times you need. If you think you're ready, don't stop and just write the correct one. We have already done exercise 9 and 10. We will continue from 11 to 18. Get ready. Remember, the secret is in the details.
I'd like to explain what we know about this bear and why I find it so fascinating. It's the only survivor of a type of bear that once ranged across America during the last ice age. We thought that it was only found in certain places in Venezuela and Chile, but I was thrilled to read some reports that suggested it might also be living in northern parts of Argentina and eastern Panama. It's quite difficult to find spectacled bears in the wild because they are quite shy animals and tend to live in a wide variety of habitats, which can range from dry coastal deserts to high mountain areas above 4,000 metres. They are most commonly found in forests, though. Being such timid animals, they tend to come out at night, which is another thing that makes them difficult to see, though, like me, you may be surprised to learn that they don't sleep all through the winter, as many other types of bear do. We're not sure about the actual number of spectacled bears that remain in the wild, but it's been estimated that there are only about 2,400 still around. The bears are endangered, not so much because they are hunted by other animals, but what I find really sad is the fact that humans destroy their habitat. Spectacled bears are quite small compared with other bears, and of course they do have other enemies. These mostly include mountain lions and jaguars, but they remain a smaller threat. The bears are primarily vegetarian, and their normal diet is tree bark and berries. On rare occasions, though, they eat honey, which I thought was just something in children's books. I was interested to find that they are incredibly good climbers, and one thing I found really funny is that they've been known to sit up in a tree for days. They make a platform. Why? I couldn't guess, but they're waiting for fruit to ripen so they can eat it. It's quite surprising that although they rarely eat meat, they have extremely strong jaws and wide, flat teeth. Very occasionally they do eat meat, something like birds or insects, though they like small mice best if they can get them. We're really trying to make people more aware of the bears, and we've made a television series about one man's efforts to make people understand the dangers facing the animals. He spent a long time in Peru studying them and has published a very funny diary of his time there. I hope everyone will read it and support our efforts to help these fascinating creatures. So, are there any questions?
Let's see exercise 11. See the structures, Venezuela and Chile. Remember when there are two answers connected by an and, it's none of them. Also, America is mentioned and Eastern Panama. But which is the detail that we had to pay attention to? Areas of Argentina. And here's talking about parts of Argentina. So the correct answer is northern areas of Argentina. Something very important also to take into account is when they talk about the speaker's emotions. Angela is pleased by, and here is expressed, but I was thrilled to read. And when this happens, if you see, the correct answer is immediately said afterwards. Northern part of Argentina. Exercise 12. The key word was usually live, although can be found in other places also mentioned in. They tend to live in a wide variety of habitats. And now, when it says which can range from dry coastal deserts to high mountain areas, as you see, this is a distractor because it's the same than when there are two answers connected by an and. The same happens here. From, to. So it's never going to be the answer if it's not specified this meaning in the exercise. And they usually live, they are most commonly found, so the correct answer is forest. Exercise 13. Keywords to underline: behave differently during, and also we pay attention to Angela finds surprising. The distractor is at night. Why? Because it's not making reference to the exercise. They do not behave differently because they are all timid animals that tend to only come out at night. Again, it's expressed her emotions. Angela finds surprising. And remember what happened before. The correct answer was immediately placed afterwards. And the same happens here. Like me, you may be surprised to learn that they don't sleep all through the winter as many other types of bears do. So they behave differently. When? In winter. So it would be during winter. That's the correct answer. Exercise 14. The keyword here was biggest danger. And again, we have her emotions expressed. So if you realize, it says the bears are endangered and not so much because they are hunted by other animals. So even though animals was the other distractor, there was a negative in front. So we know it's incorrect when we hear this word. Immediately after, they give us the answer. But what I find really sad, Angela is upset, is the fact that humans destroy the habitat. Therefore, humans is the correct answer. Exercise 15. Keyword was usually eat and tree bark. Now, pay attention to this. Their normal diet, what they usually eat, is tree barks and berries. Now, remember when I told you that two answers united by an and would be incorrect? This is the exception. Why? Because it is specified in the text. So the and is placed here. So the exception of the rule. The distractor was honey, but it's not what they usually eat, as they eat it only on rare occasions. Exercise 16. The key word was make a, and again, her emotions, which fascinated Angela. In this one, there is no distractor. There's only one answer, which is the correct one. And this fascination expressed. One thing I found really funny is that, and then she just continues, they have been known to sit up a tree for days and they make a platform. So platform is the correct answer. Exercise 17. Keyword meat, prefer. And again, there's a generalization. They do eat other creatures. So let's see. This is reflected in sometimes like birds or insects. And the same happens. It can be two answers united with an and or with an or. And this is a generalization, so you know it's incorrect. Now, it says very occasionally they do eat meat when bears eat meat. And here it is. Though they like small mice best, they prefer if they can get them. So the correct answer is they much prefer mice or they much prefer small mice. Exercise 18. The words one man produced an amusing time studying the bears. Now, the structure here is television series. If you realize, it says we have made a television series, and here is one man has produced. So because of the subject, we know it's incorrect. And they're making reference to the television series in order to make reference to this man. So the television series about one man's effort, then he makes reference to what he did. He spent a long time studying them, making reference here to it. Afterwards mentioned and has published, has produced a very funny diary, an amusing diary of his time there. So diary is the correct answer. I hope I've helped you to understand the reasoning behind this exercise in this way, and remember to underline the small details, which are the key words of the correct answer. Pay attention when the speaker is making reference to her feelings, because it is going to be also expressed in different words, and two possible answers united by an and or an or most of the time will be incorrect if it's not specifically expressed in the exercise. Remember, there are exceptions of the rules as we have seen in this example. So remember all the techniques that we must take into account when doing this exercise. And as I always say, is theory important? Of course it is, but practice is essential. In order to make all the possible mistakes practicing, so we do not make them during the official exam. Bye bye.